Hi, Kara.
Hey, Megan.
This is the Witches, Magic, Murder, and Mystery podcast.
It is?
It is.
Oh my gosh.
It did sound like I was telling you.
I
Hey,
am
Kara,
so
did you
excited
know?
to be on this episode today.
You know this podcast we've been doing almost every week for
Yeah?
2 years? It's the
Kara-
Witches, Magic,
Oh my
Murder,
God,
and
Megan,
Mystery
it's been
podcast.
almost 2
It
years.
has been almost 2 years. That's weird, right?
Holy heck. How many listens are we at? We're close.
I don't know. We are close. We'll have to do something to celebrate it. We're
Let's
close
do
to 1 million.
Let's record it. Let's do something weird and record it.
Well, yeah, obviously. Did we say I'm Megan and you're Kara?
Oh, I don't know, but hey, I'm Kara.
And I'm Megan.
And we're the Witches, Magic, Murder, Mystery podcast.
In case you missed it the first 3
Yeah.
times. Okay, so Tuesday episodes, if you don't know this already, are usually
Our
a little
side
different.
pieces.
Yeah, they're shorter. They're usually sent in by you guys. This one's not.
Okay.
It is a little bit shorter than my usual ones, but it's kind of different because it's a different kind of mystery. It's more of a medical mystery.
Oh, I love these kinds.
But you guys, I've done a few episodes about this kind of thing where, so I went to college for a really long time.
To be an amphibianologist.
Oh, man. To just have a bachelor's degree that I don't actually use anymore.
Because
so,
it's fun.
I should be like a doctor like twice over for as
Right.
long as I went to
Right.
college. But it took me a long time to settle on a major. And I ended up settling on psychology strictly
Mhm.
because I think the brain is so
It's so
freaking
interesting.
cool.
Yeah.
Certain things like hysterical pregnancy, where your body will
Right.
develop a pregnant belly.
Yeah.
You believe so much that you are pregnant.
You can feel it move.
Yeah, that you will look pregnant.
Yeah.
Like the things that the brain is capable of doing fascinate me.
Oh, yeah.
So what we're about to talk about
Okay.
is a medical mystery.
Okay.
And one of the things that happened in my abnormal psych class, they were like, listen, as you learn about these mental illnesses,
Mhm.
all of you are going to diagnose yourself with this.
Oh, yeah,
and
for
we
sure.
were all, 19 years old. We were like, yeah, sure.
We're not going to.
But then in the middle
you
of
do.
class, I'm like,
Yeah.
oh, I have that. I have that.
Uh-huh.
Oh, I also have that.
Yeah.
So as I'm going through this, hopefully none of you diagnose yourself with what I'm about to tell you about. Okay?
Okay.
Okay.
This is going to be great.
All right. It is 1882.
Okay. I love that time frame.
Chester A. Arthur is president
Uh-huh.
because James Garfield was assassinated. Did you know that?
Yeah.
Okay.
Just
I went to
because,
college for a really long time.
no, I didn't learn that in college, and I didn't learn that in high school. I learned that watching a documentary because I love history.
I had no idea that James Garfield was assassinated. So Chester A. Arthur is president. There are 38 states. We're about a year past a famous gunfight that breaks out at the OK Corral
my
in Tombstone, Arizona, when Wyatt Earp and his brothers and Doc Holliday
Uh-huh.
try to disarm Billy Clanton and the Cowboys.
Oh, man.
This has absolutely nothing to do with the story.
Megan knows every.
The story I'm telling you
about
doesn't
that.
even take place in the United States. I really just was like, how could I have a Tombstone reference? And there we go. Okay, so in 1882 in
Uh-huh,
France, Dr. Jules Cotard, he's hanging out in his office at a hospital in France with a very French name. When a new patient arrives,
Yep.
a 43-year-old woman who's forever referred to as Mademoiselle X. We don't know her
X.
name.
Okay.
So
Like
she,
Jane Doe, but no.
right, Mademoiselle X.
I prefer that.
She shows up and she's like, Dr. Cotard, listen, I am nothing. Just like Whitney Houston,
Yeah.
Nothing. And he's like, excuse me?
I'm
And
sorry, what?
She says, I am skin and bones.
Mhm.
And so now you're thinking, okay, is this some sort of weight thing and
Yeah,
eating
like, are you-
disorder? No.
What are you going through?
Mademoiselle X believes she has no brain, no nerves, no chest, no stomach, no bowels, no internal organs.
Just skin and bones.
She is an upright sack of skin, basically, being dragged around
Sagittarius.
by her bones.
Okay.
So let's just, what?
What? How?
How do you think you're moving?
How do you think you're having these thoughts?
Right.
Right.
How do you think you're speaking?
Yep.
Okay.
How do you think that you even came up with this conclusion?
Also, says Mademoiselle X, I have no soul.
Oh.
P.S. There's no God. The devil doesn't exist. I am immortal.
Mm.
Is it schizophrenia? No,
No.
not quite.
No.
Because she believes that she cannot die, Mademoiselle X is like, also, I don't eat. I don't need to eat. What's the point? I have no stomach.
Oh.
I'm immortal.
I feel no hunger.
No stomach, no organs. And
He looks at his watch.
Dr. Cotard's
It's like,
like,
"Can I give you 3 days.
wow,
Great.
what do we do here?
Where do we put you?
Yes. So,
Lovely. Wow.
can you imagine him just being like, huh? So he does
Wow.
1880 version of Googling kids.
Yeah.
And he finds a reference to a case in 1788, 100 years earlier, where a Swiss scientist named Charles, it's either Bonnet or Bonnet. I think it's Bonnet.
I like Bonnet.
Talked about a woman who'd come to his office with similar symptoms. Apparently, she'd been fine, going about her normal activities. She was making a meal for her family.
Okay.
And then she felt a draft, which I don't really know what that has to do with anything.
Did she?
But it was there. Yeah. And she fell.
Oh.
She experienced temporary paralysis on one side of her body.
Okay.
That's when she fell. The paralysis got better. And then she turns to her daughters and she says, "Girls, I'm dead. I need you to put me in a coffin. I need you to wrap me in a shroud and put me in a coffin."
And they said, Mom?
They're like, "You are not dead.
Yeah.
Let's just
We're
settle
talking
down.
to you.
Don't be dramatic."
Mhm.
And this woman insists that she's dead. And
Huh.
she is like, "You must treat me as if I'm dead." Like, she's angry with
That
them.
they won't do it. She's
And
like,
yeah.
I'll do it myself.
Ain't nobody happy unless Mama's happy. So
Right.
they do it. They're just like,
Oh.
"Okay, Mom, you're dead." And they wrap her in a shroud and they put her in a coffin and they mourn her.
She's like looking at everybody, grinning, peeking to see who's there.
Who's crying.
Yeah.
And then once she fell asleep, they took her out of the coffin, out of the shroud, and put her in bed. And so to treat this, the doctor or whoever in
Right.
1788 made a powder out of precious stones and opium.
Great.
You know,
Yeah.
once you do some cocaine about it,
Yeah.
which seemed to help.
Okay.
Mostly, her symptoms would return every now and then,
But now she's
like
dependent on cocaine.
not. What's worse, really?
Yeah.
And that wasn't the only example Dr. Cotard found in the literature.
Oh, there's more.
There were a few sporadically.
Oh, okay.
So then I did the 2022 version of Googling.
Right.
And I discovered this website that I'm completely obsessed with now.
I can't wait.
They'll be in the show notes if you guys want to see. But it's called the Sloan, Sloane, Letters Project.
Okay.
Basically, there are 38 volumes of letters, either to or from this Irish doctor named Sir Hans Sloane. He lived in the 1700s.
Okay.
In the letters, you know, it's his...
And they were able to preserve these letters.
Yes,
Amazing.
that's what this project is. They're basically making a database of them to search.
Amazing.
I don't particularly know that he is like any sort of important person. It's
Right.
just that they have
All these
all
letters.
of his correspondence.
Oh.
And they're full of everything. There's like scientific discourse, collections of antiquities, talk of just
Oh
general
my gosh.
curiosities and books, patients' illnesses, medical
How
treatment,
cool.
family history, whatever.
Right.
I love it.
Yeah.
I was like, this is amazing.
Right.
Anyway, in one of those letters,
Mhm.
dated July 20th,
Mhm.
1715, I can't even quite tell you how I found this. But
Right.
Apothecary William Lilly wrote a letter to Hans Sloane
Mhm.
about Lady Henrietta Somerset.
Okay.
And in it, he describes a condition that sounds a lot like the same thing that Dr. Cotard is seeing.
Oh.
Although obviously it wasn't diagnosed
Right.
as anything back
Mhm.
then. It's also not super great to try and diagnose someone hundreds of years later based on one letter,
exactly.
but
Yeah, you know,
just
I like it. We're
walk
here
with
for
me
it.
here.
Yeah.
In the letter, Lily, the apothecary, says that the Lady Somerset had taken a nap. Here's a quote from the letter, so it's a little bit
Uh-huh.
different way of speaking, but when she waked from her slumber, called out in a frightful manner for half an hour that she was deceased.
Mm.
Then she got really, really sleepy and lay still without any motion. And then she needed help to get to a bedpan, even though she'd walked just fine the day before.
Oh.
So he thought she might have phrenitis, which
Mhm.
is acute inflammation of the mind and body.
Oh.
Like your mind's inflamed.
Right.
Got some problems in your brain.
Got it. It's a little fluffy up there.
He tried a few different common treatments from the time,
Okay.
like bloodletting,
Mm-hmm. Leeches.
laying pigeons at her feet, which was something they used to do for like headaches and migraines.
I've got the next solution for you when you get a headache.
Yeah, thank you
I'm
for
gonna
that.
get some pigeons.
Shaved her head to keep her head from overheating.
Oh.
And applied blisters to her legs to draw the bad humor down and out. Do you know what applying blisters means?
Are you burning the skin?
I had to look it up because I was like, what? And I thought
You're
maybe
taking
the
a
word blister meant something
You
different.
take like a blister off your heel, like
And
the
just,
skin, just like
Yeah, slap it on there. Okay, so I looked it up
Uh-huh.
and I ended
You
up
regretted
reading.
it.
I did because it made me sad. I ended up reading about George Washington's death,
Right.
which happened 30 months
Yep.
after he retired. So let's all take a moment. I remember him singing in Hamilton
Mm-hmm.
about how he's finally going, I'm going home.
Yeah.
You know, like
exactly.
he sits
Yeah,
under
yeah,
his
yeah.
vine and fig tree
Yeah,
and whatever.
Right.
And he ended up passing away a little over 2 years later.
Right.
Anyway, Here's what I learned after
Or
reading.
probably what was like strep or pneumonia.
They actually don't 100% know.
Right.
But they think pneumonia.
Yeah.
Okay, so anyway, applying blisters means they would actually put stuff on the skin to cause a blister to form. It would be like a paste a lot of the time.
Oh, to like it.
To like irritate the skin, and a blister would rise up, and then they would like, I'm sorry. Here's the thing we get in trouble for a lot with you guys. If you're eating right now, stop.
Yeah, if you're thinking of eating,
I'll give you a minute.
If you got a beverage in your mouth,
go ahead, swallow it.
Yep.
Okay, we all doing good? Okay.
You good?
The blister would rise up, and they would cut it open and drain it, and they believed that the stuff that drained out of it was like whatever was making you sick. It was like the bad stuff. It would. Oh. So they're like, we're gonna make this have a blister. It's gonna pull up all the bad stuff. Oh. And we're gonna drain it, and then you're gonna get better. Oh. They did that to George Washington too. Yeah. They tried this. This is one of the treatments
that's how that process worked.
That Lily tried on Lady Somerset to dry up or whatever was making her act so odd. He described her as much more melancholy than usual. He also said that, here's another quote, she says that she is undone in soul and body, that she is sure she will be damned, and when I urge her to speak, she tells me she is dead and has been so for some time. She did end up dying less than a month later on August 10th, 1750. Wow. 1715. Dr. Cotard, he didn't know about that case. That's my own special thing. But he did find other similar cases presented by French psychiatrist Jean-Etienne Dominique Esquirol and Francois Lorette. Perfect. And Cotard decided he was witnessing something new. A syndrome he first called hypochondrial delirium. Okay. And later negation delusion. It was characterized by anxious melancholia, condemnation of ideas, insensitivity to pain, negation delusion of organs, and immortality delusion. Today, this syndrome is known as Cotard's delusion or walking corpse syndrome. People with this diagnosis often deny their own existence or the existence of certain parts of their body. Okay. Sometimes they may be convinced that they are already rotting. Okay. That they've lost some or all of their organs, or that they've already died. Wow. Sometimes it's like
that they're rotting.
Yeah, wait till I give you some of these examples, because it's just like, what? So sometimes it's like they think their whole body is dead, or sometimes it's more like Mademoiselle X, where she's just like, all my organs are gone. I don't have any nervous system. I don't have any torso. Right. No torso.
I'm sorry.
How's your head holding up?
How are all your bones and skin? And
so that's the thing. Yeah. Obviously, she can look down and see that there's a torso there. Yeah. But when she looks at it, she sees it as dead. Oh. And so they don't see any reason, people with this problem, they don't see any reason to take care of it. Because why? It's dead. Yeah. Just like she's like, I don't need to eat. Yeah. So, she's like, my stomach is dead and gone. I have no reason to eat. And she ended up dying of starvation. Yeah. Like, that is how, it's not like even at some point her survival instinct kicked over. Yeah. She just
let it
starved
take over. Yeah.
And several of the articles I read about this made the point to say she was in fine physical health before this started. Ooh. So that's the physical danger of this illness. The patient neglects to take care of their basic needs and hygiene, and then their physical health declines. Ooh. So Dr. Cotard named this syndrome in 1882. Since then, there have only been about 200 cases diagnosed worldwide, so it's incredibly rare. Yeah. And I know I've told you about a lot of really old cases, but there have been several more recent instances. What? So let's talk about that.
Okay, let's do it.
They're not in order, I don't think, unless they just magically are, in which case, forget I said that. Right. In 2003, a patient in Greece went to the doctor because he's like, I have no brain. Right. It's gone.
I don't feel a thing.
And he said he'd attempted suicide a few years earlier because there's no point in living if you don't have a brain.
Oh, gosh.
Years. So this has been going on for years?
Just with that. Oh, okay.
That same doctor also reported treating a 72-year-old woman who said, Doc, all of my organs melted, leaving just skin here.
Where'd they go?
I'm practically dead. I don't know. I don't know if she means melted like rotted. In 2008, a psychiatrist in New York treated a 53-year-old woman who complained that she was dead and that she smelled so bad of rotting flesh.
And they're like, ma'am, you smell of daisies.
Like she smelled something that wasn't there.
Just like her brain just Made her believe it so much that she could smell it.
And she like wanted her family. She was like, take me to the morgue with all the other dead people. And her family's like, no. And they called 911.
Oh my gosh.
But like she was insisting, like, that's where I'm supposed to be. I'm dead. Like that's how firmly she believed it.
No.
In 2009, an 88-year-old man in Belgium went to the psychiatrist for his depression. And he finally, they're talking about his depression. And he was like, okay, actually, here's the thing. I'm dead.
Oh my gosh.
And I'm a little concerned that nobody's buried me yet.
Sir?
Which is kind of, well, yeah, I can see what that would bother you.
Yeah.
However,
I'm actually dead.
Let me tell you, you're not dead.
Yeah.
But that's the thing. They won't believe you. There is no reasoning.
Right.
You know, a 46-year-old woman went to her psychiatrist stating, I have not eaten or used the bathroom in months, and I have not slept in years. My organs have all rotted. And when doctors would try to tell her, you have a heartbeat, there is blood running through your body.
Right.
She basically just accused them of lying. Just like, no, you're making this up.
Yeah.
I'm dead.
Yeah.
All my internal organs have dried up. You people are making this up.
That's wild.
In 2015, Brazilian doctors treated a 31-year-old man who said his organs were destroyed and he was hollow inside and that all his skin was rotting.
So all of these people are convinced that they have no organs.
Because they're dead.
Yeah.
He insisted that his body was deformed and that his face was full of holes, which it kind of is if you think about it. I mean, you've got eye sockets and your nose and stuff. But now, when I mentioned the characteristics that Dr. Cotard listed as part of this new syndrome he discovered, you might remember that I said immortality delusion.
Right.
So I'm telling you, people with Cotard syndrome believe they are dead, but also believe they're immortal.
Right.
Like a zombie or a vampire, basically. They're dead, but they're still here on Earth interacting with living people. And to a person with Cotard syndrome, this is just proof of their eternal damnation, which is another characteristic of the syndrome, is like believing that they're damned.
Their purgatory is nobody believing them.
Right. So being on Earth and interacting with living people does not make them think, oh, I'm wrong. I must be alive. This is evidence I'm alive. Instead, this is simply further like, oh, I'm dead. I shouldn't be here. So now I'm damned. I must be damned.
Yeah.
So doctors still don't really know what causes Cotard's delusion. It's also known as, like I said, walking corpse syndrome and Cotard's syndrome. Research links it to another illness called, I think it's CAPGRAS, Capgras delusion, which makes you believe that the people around you are all imposters. It's caused by a neural misfiring in the part of the brain that recognizes faces. So it's like I would look at you and I know you're Kara.
Yeah.
But when I look at your face, I don't recognize it as your face.
Yeah.
And so I think you're Kara, but you're not Kara.
Right.
Something in my brain doesn't believe it. So can you imagine how uncomfortable and creepy that would feel to look at all the people you know and be like, it's you, but it's not you.
It's not you. I know it's not you.
And so
you're a changeling.
The hypothesis is that Cotard's delusion takes this kind of misfiring one step further. Instead of being unable to recognize faces, you can't recognize your own body. Yeah. Which I get, I guess, except like, I mean, if I looked at my internal organs right now, I wouldn't recognize them either. Like I would be like, well, that's mine.
That's my spleen.
There's some sort of, I love how it's always spleen. There's some sort of detachment here where like you see your body, but you see it as dead.
Right.
Like why?
Also, it's getting you to and from places. It's so
it must be such a thing of like, you look at your body and you're not recognizing it as being yours. So then it's like, well, the only way
I'm stuck in this.
Yeah. The only way this doesn't feel like my body is that it must be dead.
Yeah.
Or something.
Right.
So here's what we do know.
Wow.
Cotard's delusion is a symptom of different illnesses rather than a standalone disease in itself.
Okay.
So it's not listed in the DSM-5, which is a manual we've talked about before, used by mental health professionals to diagnose a mental illness.
Right.
It gives the criteria that must be met for a diagnosis. So Cotard's delusion is not a standalone diagnosis. It's known to be secondary to other conditions like psychotic depression, dementia, schizophrenia, bipolar disorder, and the use of psychoactive and psychotropic substances like heroin, LSD, and cocaine.
Okay.
Cotard's delusion can happen at any age, but people seem to most often get it in their 50s, and they usually have a history of mental health issues like the ones I listed a minute ago. And most people who suffer from it also have some type of brain damage that shows up on imaging tests, like a stroke, tumor, blood clot, or some other injury. There are typically 3 stages to Cotard's delusion. The first one is the person will experience anxiety and depression. In the second stage, they start to believe they're dead.
Okay.
And by the third stage, it's like you cannot
Right.
reason with them. You cannot
Yeah.
convince them that they're not
Yeah.
dead. So here's the good news.
Okay, great.
If you or someone you know suddenly starts to show any symptoms of Cotard's delusion, there is treatment available.
Oh.
So since Cotard's is recognized as a secondary issue, treatment is usually focused on whatever the primary medical
Right.
issue is. So usually a combination of medication and talk therapy, BetterHelp /WMMM is effective, and antidepressants, antipsychotics, and mood stabilizers help. Many of the cases that I presented to you earlier, the recent ones,
Right.
they were able to be treated
Oh.
and go on with their life.
Okay.
Yeah. And in some cases, they might return, but the
Right.
symptoms might return
Right.
temporarily, but then you can get treatment
Yeah.
to be cured, at least temporarily.
Right.
Yeah. So that's just,
That's wild.
I had read an article about it randomly. It was something about like someone who believed they were a zombie. And so,
Oh my
of course, I
gosh.
was like, well, that might be something for the podcast at some point. And so I was going through old stuff and found it. And I was like, oh, yeah. Just the things that your brain can convince you of. Like the fact that you could be a living, breathing human being fully convinced that you're dead.
Right.
And I mean, there was one article that I read about this that was kind of getting into like philosophy stuff where it's like, what is truth? Like, you know, truth is basically what we all kind of agree for it to be, you know? Like we all agree the sky's blue, but the blue I see is probably not the same one you see, that kind of thing. I mean, when someone is around you, arguing with you, telling you you're alive, but your brain is
like,
very firmly being like, they're wrong. I
What do
mean,
you,
that is your truth.
Yeah.
It's not like you're lying.
Right.
You're not lying.
Oh my gosh.
This is just for you. This is what's
Ooh.
real. I cannot imagine just the torment of it.
No, that's insane.
Yeah. So I'm so glad there's treatment. I mean, back then,
Well,
of course, in Cotard's day, they didn't really know
No.
what to do. And who knows what kind of medication was even
Oh,
available.
Lord.
Well, and especially in the case that I read in the Sloan Letters Project, they talked about how Sloan's reply, like Lily was trying to convince him, like, listen, this is not a physical health problem.
Right.
This is hysteria.
Right. Yeah.
And it was all this talk about people just didn't believe it.
Right.
People were just like, you know, delusions among women in particular are, you know,
Let's just put her away.
they're very extravagant delusions, especially among women. And it's like, no, this is actually a thing.
Yeah.
But of course,
Here we are.
they had to see it a few times.
Right.
But that's the other thing I think that is so fascinating is how rare it is.
Yeah.
So for Dr. Cotard to even recognize, he went and looked for more examples instead of just being like, this lady is
crazy.
nuts. Yeah. I mean,
So
he actually,
crazy.
he did his job. He was like, oh,
Right.
this is not,
Oh, we need to look
other
into
people
this.
have
Yeah.
experienced this, even if it was 100 years
Yeah.
earlier. There you go.
Wow,
Don't we
wow.
all feel smarter?
Amazing.
You got to learn something new today, friends.
How cool is that, guys?
Okay, so that's your Tuesday episode.
Yeah.
We'll be back Friday with another one.
Amazing.
Okay, we love you.
So much.
Goodbye.
Goodbye.